Episode number 231 with Clayton Fletcher and Alex Fitzgerald. Welcome to the Heads Up Poker Podcast. This is Steve Barton.
This is an iconic figure in American podcasting. That's all you need to know.
Michael Snyderman in the flesh. How you doing, man?
Pretty good. How about you?
Good. A little tired. It was a late night last night, but it was fun. Did you end up quitting when you left Zoom, or did you play a little more? Or?
Right after I smashed my phone, yeah, I had to stop for a while.
Yeah. Okay.
Until I fix it.
Yeah. It's
game,
getting.
How long did that game last after I left?
After you left, we stayed on Zoom for probably another, 20 or 30 minutes. And then it got down to, it was me, Taylor, who else? And then we ended the night pretty shortly after.
Okay.
It was pretty quick. But yeah, that site's been fun. And since we talked about it last time on the show, we got 3 more listeners to come over and play. So that was fun. Taylor was on Zoom with us last night, so that was cool. That was cool. But it's it's a fun game. Those tournaments, they're a lot of fun.
How's the have you been playing the open face Chinese? You been playing any of that, or?
I have, yeah. I've been experimenting with the Joker version, which it just adds even more variance into the deck. But the thing is like, the whole point of this game is to get into fantasy land, so you can see all your cards at the same time, and it gives you a huge advantage. When this Joker version, it's a lot easier to do that because you have 2 Jokers in the deck, to make. And even more important than that is if you get aces up on top in this Joker version, when you go to fantasy land, you get 16 cards instead of only 14 with the regular version. So when you get into Fantasyland and you see all your cards at the same time and your opponent doesn't, you have a huge advantage. Then if you get into Fantasyland again with this Joker version, you get 16 cards again. You get to see them all at the same time, pick your best hands, set it, and then try to get it again. So you can get locked in like this vortex in this Joker version of, I got 10 Fantasylands in a row in this version, which would like never happen in the regular version of OFC. And but then on the other side of the coin, you can get kind of locked out and the other guy just keeps getting Fantasyland and you're just getting pummeled every time. So it's a lot of variance, but it's fun. Yeah,
that's cool.
Yeah,
it is.
Well, you were talking about maybe going and playing live here soon, huh?
Yeah, that's right. The local casino here, one of them, has opened.
Which one is it?
Yamul. I don't know how to pronounce it.
Okay.
I have yet to be there.
Okay. I was talking with Dave. He's on the site. He's Madone 52.
Yep.
And he was saying that I talked with him this morning. And he was saying he thought it was that one that you were going to go play at. And I guess he writes for Ante Up now, so he gets a lot of the inside scoop on what casinos are opening and stuff.
Right. We'll see what it is down there. Now, for all I know, if it's the only casino open, people are desperate. Like there could be 6 LA pros sitting there waiting each day. You know what I mean? The game could suck, but we'll see. Anytime I have a bad stretch online, I like to get the hell off.
Yeah.
Yesterday, like I said, I don't know enough about the game, but I lost 14 buy-ins in PLO6 in like an hour and a half, and just like kept getting it in good.
Wow.
That's pretty disheartening.
You said you only run it once, right?
I did that yesterday. I think I ran once. I might have run something twice where I was a favorite in, and I said, screw this. I just made a decision on not running anything multiple times, which in PLO is probably bad. But like I said, it was unreal. Like 11 straight. I lost at 50 cent $1 game. I lost $2,000 in 2 hours.
Wow. Yeah, I called Jacob on this, running it multiple times,
Yeah.
and basically asked him the math, like, is one more correct than the other? And he said it really doesn't matter. He said when you have pocket fives and the other guy has ace queen, and you're 53% and he's 47, that's pretty much it. Whether you run it once, twice, or three times doesn't really matter. He said now if you do run it multiple times, you're going to drastically help with variance because you basically get three runs at it.
Right.
And so like in those 14 situations, you could have had 14 times three runs instead of only 14.
Right.
So I don't know. After talking with him, I just decided I'm just going to do it three times every time. But I don't like doing it twice, because especially when you're in it as a favorite and you lose one, then you just split the pot. Like, that seems terrible.
Well, you shouldn't do the same every time, because your opponent knows. Then you're not gonna. He might just say, yeah, he might just be willing to gamble a little more, which maybe you don't want to do. So it adds variance not just towards that particular hand that's going in, but it even adds more to. I mean, if you have a semi-passive player, do you know what I mean?
Okay, I hadn't thought about that aspect of it. You mean like the psychological effect on the people that you're running it three
Yeah,
times
or
with?
I mean, I guess you want them to call, but like sometimes, like if you already have a big pot and you shove someone in on the turn, and like if they know you're running, if they know that if they have a flush draw, they're probably going to say, okay, screw it, multiple
Ah,
times. Do you know what I mean? Where maybe, like overall, Jake, like you said, it doesn't matter.
okay.
I mean, it's probably just like I said, but I would think the result of that would be, well, in a PLO6 game, people are going in all the time anyways. But I would think that would increase the little frequency of the all-ins. Do you know what I mean? So,
Maybe it would. I hadn't even thought of that. I was just looking at it strictly for the math. But yeah, I don't know. Yeah, that could be interesting. I could see some of the guys in our game maybe calling me off a little bit lighter, knowing that I'm going to hit the three-time button,
but
because
if
I
they're
always
calling
do.
with a, if they're calling lighter, then that's profitable, I guess, unless
Yeah. Uh, I don't know.
Who do we have on today?
We have Clayton and Alex, and I'm excited for this one because both of these guys are in New York. And during the whole COVID pandemic, I'm curious to get a New Yorker's opinion.
Sure.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, that's quite a ambitious all-star lineup you got here, Steve.
I think so. We're
You
making
have
friends
the
and
number
influencing
one
people.
poker coach.
Mm-hmm.
You have the number one poker podcast host in yourself, and I'm pretty fabulous too, Steve. Who's the other guy?
The comedian.
Well, 3 out of 4, Steve, isn't bad.
The Joker.
3 out of 4 is not bad.
Yes.
Yeah, we didn't even discuss COVID there. Yeah, I went to a home game this past Friday, and I'm going to another one this afternoon.
Nice.
But is it, Steve? Should I be avoiding that?
Oh,
Obviously, I gotta do what I gotta do here. You know what I mean? This isn't. I mean, there's hand sanitizer there, but that's about it. Nobody wore a mask last time we played.
watching the progression of you continuously play, dozens of hours on online, I think it's good for you to get out and mingle.
Well, no, I'm talking about the virus.
Yeah, I know. I know.
Okay.
Even that risk that you're taking, I think, is worth it for your mental stability. Mike, go to the home game.
So you want me to die, is what you're saying? Don't worry, Steve. I don't take it personally.
I have a couple of friends that got it, husband and wife. They're in their early 50s, and they basically said that, yeah, it sucks. It feels like you got the flu. They said it's not a fun experience, but they're not.
Did they go to the hospital?
No.
Nope,
just gutting it out.
Just got a Z-Pack or whatever it is, right?
Yeah. But they basically said it just sucks. It feels like you got the flu. So take that what it's worth. But yeah, I got tested recently. I don't have it, or at least I didn't at the time of the test. I feel fine. And I mean, of all the professions, I'm probably one of the ones that's exposed the most, so.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, when you guys go at it there, it's usually in the showers, right?
Play a game of drop the soap.
Yeah, I just. But yeah, Steve, you guys keep it sanitary over there.
Yeah. But right on, good for you. Yeah, I'm gonna be heading out camping right after this is done. I screwed up my schedule at work, and I have like another week off. So I got the truck all loaded up, fishing poles.
You going camping by yourself or going?
By myself. Yeah.
You went fishing by yourself. This is Steve. Is this you growing older, more introspective, introverted, where you want some more time? I'm surprised. 2 little ventures here, all by yourself.
Yeah. I don't know. I like going on my own. I mean, yeah, I can't tell you how many movies I've been to just on my own with no one else, like at the theater, you know.
I mean, you don't have to sell it to me. I'm much happier when no one else is around, pretty much. So, but even when you're like, I'm sure, Steven, even when you're like alone in the woods, are you like talking to like the, squirrel? Hey, Mr. Squirrel, isn't it a sunny day today?
No, what's neat about vacationing by yourself is you can do whatever you want, whenever you want, wherever, at any time. There's never, literally just, Steve, what do you want to do today? Let's go fishing over there. Okay, done. Like,
right.
I like it, it's fun to me.
When you're traveling with a buddy, you don't want the hooker to be too fat because he might make fun of you the next day, right?
Yeah.
When you're out alone, who gives a shit? Yeah.
There's no judgment. Not at all. Well, should we bring in Clayton and Alex?
Please.
All right,
let's rip the Band-Aid off, Stevie.
All right, we'll take a quick break. And Clayton and Alex. Clayton.
I got supersonic speed that I used to run to you. I stretched my arms for miles and miles and wrapped them.
Clayton and Alex, thank you guys for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Yes. So how is New York City during this time? You guys live in a unique part of the world.
You want to talk, Clayton?
Yeah, New York City is like South Dakota or something. It's like
Clayton's hiding under his bed. He doesn't even know what's outside the window, for God's sakes. Don't confuse the man.
It's like empty. I live on 42nd Street, just a few blocks from Times Square.
Okay.
And last weekend I went for a walk and I didn't see anybody, like not one person for like 4 blocks until I finally saw another human being. This weekend when the weather was really nice, that changed. But yeah, New York does not feel anything like the New York we all know and love right now.
Interesting. Is everyone outside required to wear masks even when you're not inside a store? Or?
Well, technically, yes, but what are they going to do? Lock everybody up for not wearing a mask?
Okay.
Yeah, New Yorkers are not the greatest with instructions. They get a little edgy when you tell them to put on masks, but don't worry, if you walk outside of your apartment without a mask, there will be a line of women in their 40s who will remind you whether you like it or not.
The Karens.
The Karens are out.
The Karens.
I didn't hear this term till just yesterday. I guess it's been around a while. I'm always late to.
The kind of people who call the police for no reason or always ask to speak to the manager. They're everywhere.
Oh, that's great.
Women of white privilege.
Yes.
Every single one that's given me a hard time has been white. And I'm literally like taking my garbage out. I'm outside for 10 seconds. Or there's one part of Queens that has nobody there. It's the industrial district. And I'm just out there jogging. I'm literally like a block away from the next person. I take my face mask off because you can't really jog that effectively with one of those on. And you'll hear something about it. They take it pretty seriously here. And then you go to the park and nobody cares. Like, no, it's so funny for how much press coverage there is about Florida's beaches and how many people are on that. nobody has any coverage of Astoria Park just being overloaded with people and everybody having barbecues and no one has a mask on. So I don't know what to tell you. They take it seriously until they don't. It's a whole lot of, rules for thee, not unto me with some of these people. But yeah.
Anecdotally, it just feels like the majority of people here are kind of over it, although we probably shouldn't be.
Yeah. I'm getting that impression too. It feels like it's not nearly as serious as they thought it was going to be, and people are just out and about, especially down here at the beaches.
Right. People want to be out for sure.
Yeah. You don't realize how what it's like to be a hermit until you have to be one. It's pretty rough.
Right.
Yeah. How's work been for you, Clayton? I'm sure the comedy shows have been canceled, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing. There's no work. I mean, the comedy clubs are all closed until further notice.
Okay.
And when they reopen, they'll probably have some kind of restriction, like only, half the seats can be filled. But, for me, that's not a problem because they're never more than that when I'm performing.
He's being modest. The one night I saw him perform, it was packed. It was loud too. That was a crazy crowd.
I might have 2 open seats just so I can bring 2 sacks of tomatoes with me, one on each side.
Yeah, so I've basically been playing online poker. I mean, that's been my, I've had 2 careers for a while now, but lately it's just been the one. I did do some commentary for Daniel Negreanu's website with Joe Stapleton. So that was kind of like doing comedy, because that guy, he's always funny. Yeah. I don't usually try to make poker funny, but Stapes' method is he basically doesn't talk about poker while he's doing poker commentary. He just has one bit after another. And we had a really good time. You can actually see that on the GG Poker official site on Twitch, where you can see
send me the link and we'll throw it in the show notes.
Sure, I will. It was Cinco de Mayo, so we were drinking tequila, and Maria Ho joined us for the final 2 tables.
Oh, you got to meet Maria Ho?
Yeah, well, I've met her a number of times before, but this is my first time, actually doing commentary with her. But by the time she came on, we had played a game. You guys have to watch this video. We played a game where every time pocket fives won a hand, because it was Cinco de Mayo, we did a shot of tequila. And that was probably the worst idea ever. Like,
I guess fives were winning a lot.
Yeah. So by the time Maria joined us, I mean, she did a few shots to try to catch up, but I mean,
you guys were just on your lips.
I'm not sure that what we did qualifies as poker commentary, but the check didn't bounce, so I'm happy.
Oh, that's great.
So I actually meant to ask, you were in the booth for like Poker Go a few times this past summer, weren't you too?
Yeah, a couple of times.
Is that just an opportunity for you to sell the brand, or do you actually get paid for that?
Oh no, I mean, I wouldn't sit there for 12 hours and talk about how great Paul Volpe is for nothing. Yeah, no, they pay you for that. I mean, anytime you see somebody doing like a full stream for hours and hours, like they're definitely getting paid. Sometimes you'll have somebody just like drop in the booth for like half an hour or something, and those are usually unpaid spots. But yeah, I mean, Poker Go hired me actually maybe 2017 or whenever their first year was. I did a couple of tournaments for them, and then last summer I just did, I think, 2, and one of them was I think it was the 50K. At the end of the summer, there was like a high roller, and your final table was like all crushers. There was the final 2 heads up were Paul Volpe and Sean Deeb.
Oh,
and at the same time on another network, I think it might have been ESPN, was like day 7 of the main event. So nobody watched this unbelievable table that Tuck and I were commentating on at the same time, because of course, the main event and Gary Gates was there. And, so it was, there is somewhere, I think that's also on Twitch now, but somewhere there is just this epic final table where it's Volpe and Deeb heads up for the bracelet. And at the time when it aired live, no one was watching us because they were all glued to the main event, of course.
Yeah.
Now that's interesting. Yeah, just on your commentary, you are very heavy on hand analysis. You said I don't really try to be funny. I mean, isn't this kind of a good a lot of people listen to this? Isn't this a kind of a good opportunity to show your professional side with that?
Yeah, I mean, certainly if an opportunity comes for me to say something that's funny, like there was a guy at one table last summer that Tuck and I did. Actually, Jesse Silvio was on that one too. It was a PLO event. And, you know, we were doing pretty heavy hand analysis, but then one of the players, it came out that he has a nickname of the Cheeseburger. So, I mean, I couldn't just let that go and not make jokes about it. So I was talking about how he was, you know, he was trying to catch up with the other players and that he really relishes the opportunity to play a final table. I mean, I did every possible cheeseburger pun you can think of and more. And
Right.
at one point it was like, I bet he can't come up with any more. And then of course I did. So, I mean, you know, if something funny is going on, but I guess my point is I don't like it when somebody tries to force comedy in a situation where nothing funny is actually happening. So for me, I assume that annoys other people as well. But yeah, I mean, obviously I'm a comedian, so if something is there, I'm going to take it, of course.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm blessed in that I don't know when other people are not enjoying it, so I don't have to worry. Just straight ahead.
You could just blanket assume we're always annoyed.
Okay.
Brutal.
Safe assumption.
Speaking
safe assumption.
Speaking of annoying, Alex, no. I was thinking, I was going to say I was thinking about your girlfriend. That didn't sound too well, but if she has not dumped you over the last 2 months, I assume she's seen your insane side now, what you look like when you're actually caged.
Wait, what did you say? Go ahead.
No, I'm saying you're usually always around the city, and maybe I see you in your room, though. You're not someone who takes that very well.
Oh,
I was joking that your girlfriend has seen this for the first time.
Yeah, you know, being in a small New York apartment, small quarters, it does take some adjustment, but I think this goes for just every couple. You just pick specific times to be alone.
Right.
And I think that works for everybody. And at the beginning, I didn't really know what to do. And then finally, I figured out there are parts of Queens I didn't know about that you could just run through and kind of be on your own for a little bit. And that helped a lot. So, yeah, I mean, it's been going okay. I wouldn't, as far as places to get stuck during COVID-19, I think New York City would be about the worst, but we're getting through it. Because the other thing is you're paying New York City prices and now you get nothing for it, right? There's no, like, it's literally, you just paid for like a Michelin star meal and nothing comes. And you just kind of have to take it. There's nothing you can do. So there's no comedy shows. There's no baseball games. There's no concerts. It's just the party's over is what it feels like. It's pretty weird.
Yeah. Interesting.
So you're not in your apartment, taxi driver, Travis Bickle style, like, you know, lighting your hand on fire shit just to kill the time. That sounds good.
You know what you need to do? You got to flush everybody in this city right down the toilet. And what was the line in that movie?
Something like that. Yeah.
Real rain's pretty soon. A real rain's coming. Going to wash the street, clean the streets free. I actually say that in lieu of when I'm angry at the post office. One side, the supervisor's a bastard, and I'm just like, a real rain's coming.
Say it unironically. Yeah, no, it hasn't progressed that bad. I was getting pretty loopy for a few days though. Because you spend 3 days just indoors or something. There was one 3-day period I didn't realize I didn't go outside because eventually I couldn't go to the gym, and that's usually what gets me out in seeing my friends. Yeah. And I was just doing the resistance band stuff. And have you guys found this where if you don't go outside for a few days and you just get zero vitamin D, you just feel sickly? I felt really sickly. I had to start just going outside and just sitting in the sun with my mask for hours, and then finally just got the vitamin D supplements, and that helped a lot.
I know exactly what you're talking about. The last 3 days for me, I took my first shower in 3 days this morning. And I realized in 3 days, the furthest I've gone is out to the end of the driveway to wheel the trash in. That's the extent of my excursion.
Nice.
Yes, just
I gotta say,
online
Alex pictures of him running. It looks like you're staying lean and in shape here. We're disappointed. I want everyone to get fat like me.
I wouldn't say super lean. I've been eating because there's nothing to do now but eat pizza and watch Joe Exotic. So I've been doing the same thing as everybody else.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I'm still trying to like at least 3 times a week. I can't not exercise. I just get super edgy now when I don't. And you got to do something. That's the hardest thing, just not being able to move around. Do you guys have any of that where you need to get outside and do something after a couple of days?
I go for a walk for a mile or two every day. That's the extent of my getting out.
That's something that works.
Yeah.
Quickly, I was zooming with some buddies and we were joking about Joe Exotic, and I'm gonna applaud myself for a good joke. I brought it up. I was like totally sincere. They're like, oh, they can't believe all these terrible people. I'm like, that bitch basket needed to go. I was trying to claim he shouldn't be in jail. I don't know. Okay, maybe it's not funny.
I missed the punchline of it. Bitch bastard.
Yeah, she was this guy goes to prison for attempted murder. But
Joe Exotic, yeah.
But on a woman who's actually has murdered. So
yes. That's right. What's that lady's name? Karen?
No, it kind of, maybe the audio dropped a little bit here, so I didn't mean to leave you hanging there, but it's kind of strange how Joe Exotic seems like the guy you would hang out with out of everybody in that show, which is pretty crazy. Like if you were forced to pick someone, Joe Exotic would probably be the guy you hang out with for a weekend. And that is insane when you consider how far out there everybody else has to be.
I'll take the tiger.
Yeah, okay. I mean, it might kill you, but it probably won't tell you about that woman down in Florida.
I can't believe the gal that got her arm bit off and she was back at work like 3 days later. Oh,
yeah, my Lord, I'm never going to complain about my job ever again. Jesus Lord.
$100 a week, and they're pulling meat out of a dumpster.
Feeding them hot dogs and stuff. Just
you got to do what you got to do, man. That was, that was unreal.
These cat people, big cat people, they're not like you and me. I mean, they're crazy. Every couple of months, you'll hear a story about somebody who works with big cats getting eaten, whether it's Siegfried and Roy or whoever. It's just, there's always something, and yet people still, like, they line up for these jobs where they can be around these tigers. I mean, my general strategy for life, GTO, is don't be where tigers are.
That was on the instruction manual.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of my, that's my mantra. That's actually my mantra when I meditate before I go to sleep at night. It's just stay away from tigers.
All right. You're going to start this RPG called Life on Earth. You're a Homo sapien. You're almost the strongest species on the entire Earth. There's only a couple animals you got to stick away from: bears, tigers. Oh, sorry, I can't do it. Got to spend time with tigers. It's like, okay, I don't think you heard this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You want to go swim with hippopotamuses while you're at it? Like, that seems like
exactly.
a good idea.
I've always assumed those cat types, if you got them drunk enough, you could get them to admit they probably value a cat's life more than a human's life.
Yeah, they do.
Those strike me as people who have been deeply traumatized by humans and are looking for another world to escape into.
That's an interesting way to put it.
None of this would dissuade Steve from actually putting his head in the lion's mouth. Like if there was some show, even if you'd seen 100 videos of people losing their heads, they're like, oh, you'd be like, we need a volunteer, Steve. All right,
let's do this.
He was drinking tequila shots with Clayton. He was ready to go.
Cinco de Mayo.
I think I talked about this. Maybe I'm the only one who's become more social during this, and that I'm like hooking up or Zooming with like college buddies I hadn't spoken to in years.
That's cool.
And talking, does that happen to anybody else? I'm curious.
I had every single person on planet Earth reach out to me to see if I was still alive. So I was forced into that.
Oh,
I wanted to or not. Like, you're in New York City now. Are you okay? It's like, yeah, man. Like, I'm 32. I'm not 65 with comorbidities. It's or whatever you call it. Like, I'll be okay. It was really, I mean, obviously it was super sweet for people to reach out to me, but I didn't want them panicky, right?
Yeah, I mean, you're much more likely to get knifed when you jog through Newark than you are to
Newark. Well, it's it occurred to me. I did commercial fishing out of high school. That was way more dangerous than if I caught COVID-19, truthfully. There was a few times on that boat I thought, like, this is it. Like, this is probably it. But I mean, I'm not gonna lie, it freaked me out too. But when all things are considered, it's more, I'm surprised where people just aren't as worried about the elderly. Like, you see people standing in front of the elderly all the time or walking in big groups so the elderly can't easily pass around them in New York. And that's the stuff that really chaps my ass, because the whole, we're all in this together. It's like, no, I've seen the death rates. We are not. Like, this affects certain people a lot more than others. And I don't think, I'll get on my high horse too much, but it did weird me out when people wouldn't worry about the people who are most at risk.
Yeah.
Well, what weirds me out is like, I went grocery shopping yesterday, and I got my mask on, I got gloves on, like, I'm doing everything I can, and this old lady with no mask and no gloves like pushes past me to get an avocado. I'm like, she just put her hands on me. Like, I'm not the one who's going to die from this. Like, what are you
lady's hip checking you to get to the fruit.
I'm like, all right, lady, like, why don't you keep a distance, So
yeah, I live in Astoria where there's lots of Greek men in their 80s, and they could not give they could not care less. They could not care less. The day the stock market crashed, they were all sitting around having their espressos, talking like 20 deep outside of the coffee shops, going like, I can't believe this is going on. Can you believe this? I'm like, fool, you got to get inside. This is scary. And I actually told one, I was like, because I don't know if these guys speak English or not. And I said, did you hear that there's a flu bug going around that's really powerful? And they were like, it's up to God. And I'm like, all right, I can't argue with that. You have a great day.
Nothing to say to that comment.
I mean, how do you argue with that? Yeah.
So when you were fishing, Alex, immediately, when you honestly, if you had a real honest to God, like existential moment where I just realized I'm really high, guys. Sorry.
Edible kicked in.
Well, I woke up in a lot of back pain this morning, so I didn't.
Okay.
I feel like I didn't have a lot of choice there. No, in that existential moment of fear, were you like, "Oh my God, I'm going to die," or were you had already prepared for this? You're like, "This."
When I was 18 years old, no, I was not prepared.
Oh, okay. I don't know.
There was, honestly, it was those things. Everything on a fishing boat. I was, by the way, before I start talking about this, I was the worst commercial fisherman who ever walked the earth. It was, my dad got me the job, and the skipper on my boat never let me forget how bad of a decision that was for him to hire me. It was all day, every day with no, it's the same thing, Alex, you pick that one up. No, you do this. But the things that scare you on a boat, they happen so quickly, you really don't get to think about it. So one time there was a rope that snapped. It got caught around something. It was with one of the nets, and it got stuck, and it essentially snapped off this thing. And if my head had been there, God, it throws you off the water or whatever. But the second I realized it was about to do that, and the second it snapped, and the second it missed me, were all about the same amount of time. So you kind of just sit there and go, oh my God. And that's about it. Or the boat tilts quite a few degrees and you have to grab on really quickly and it's a storm and you go, dear God. But you know how a lot of guys die out there, which is really tragic, is, well, it's tragic and also really bizarre. When you go to the bathroom out there, all you do is sit on a bucket on the back of the boat and everybody gives you your privacy. But what happens is a rogue wave comes up there and knocks your ass off while you're sitting on that bucket and nobody hears you because they were trying to give you privacy. And about 20 minutes later, they go, where did Jake go? Yeah. And then it's kind of too late at that point. Whereas what I was doing was sockeye salmon fishing, which isn't nearly as dangerous as crab fishing. That's what my dad does. Sockeye salmon fishing, the water is a lot more shallow. So there's a much better chance that they're going to grab you and you're going to be all right.
Those guys make decent money though, don't they?
Yeah, I made real good money while I was up there. I had a few buddies and you get a certain percentage of the haul. And as you get better and you get more skills, a few of my buddies made like $20,000 in 6 weeks. I was 18 and just like a total dumbass, and they had to show me how to do everything. And I made $7,000 in 6 weeks. Okay. And for an 18-year-old, this is back in 2006, right. So that actually meant something. It was pretty good. But yeah, once you get out to crab fishing, you can make some serious money, but it's pretty dangerous.
You are working 108 hours a week too, I'm sure, something ridiculous, pretty much.
Yeah, it was
the whole time.
It's pretty much when you're awake, you're working, and and you don't get 8 hours of sleep a night. So it's 16, 20 hours a day. And actually the hardest part of that, when you're moving, it's not that hard because you can kind of just keep moving. But when you're waiting for the net to extend and catch the fish, you can easily just fall asleep standing up. Wow. And then it's really hard to wake your ass up and keep going again.
Huh. Why don't they just, you got to have a bathroom inside, right? Why do they make you use a bucket in the back of the boat?
Yeah, we do. It's more hygienic. You just throw it off. It's because you have to clean everything out when you use everything that's on the boat. It can be used, but sometimes like you don't get a shower. Yeah. Either. That's another thing. You get a shower like twice while you're up there for 2 months.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, it's pretty disgusting. And no, they do have a bathroom, but I didn't run the damn thing. I can't remember the actual reason it was a problem. It was easier to do it in a bucket and throw it over. Sorry, I brought this topic up.
No, Steve is deeply interested.
Apparently.
Steve's like, speaking of feces, and it's like I got on a plane in Guatemala 11 years ago. You have no idea where the story is going. You just know it's going to be an unpleasant one.
Oh. All you know is Steve has like 13 follow-up questions.
Great pod. Oh shit.
How about Alex? So you've been playing. For both of you guys, do you think this is any chance this will lead for a greater push for like legal online poker? Is anything good come out of this in that respect?
Well, once the country's broke, they're going to have to start looking for some ways to make some money. So in that case, maybe.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't, honestly, your guess is as good as mine. What do you think, Clayton?
Well, I mean, the country is broke. The country's been broke for a long time. I noticed that the very first thing the government did as soon as somebody died from coronavirus in America is they gave $2 trillion to the stock market right away to pump up the stock market, which, it's not like we had an extra $2 trillion lying around. I mean, we're already so far in debt. I mean, this country is beyond.
It's crazy.
Broke.
We never hear about that. Like,
no one ever talks about it.
I don't know about, when I was growing up, I still remember like the cover of Newsweek or something when the debt hit 1 billion. Well, it made it sound like we were on the cusp of destruction there, and now it's
really
I'm pretty sure I could look when the first $1 billion deficit was, but that's a rounding error on a rounding error of estimates. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So it's crazy. And, politicians, they don't win elections by talking about how they're going to cut programs and make the government smaller so we can get out of debt. You win elections by saying, I'm going to give everybody a free education. I'm going to give everybody $1,000 a month. That's how you run for president. So it doesn't really matter. I'm not talking about, being a Republican or a Democrat. It's just, this is how things work in America. If you want the votes, you got to give people stuff. And so the first thing they did is rescue the stock market with $2 trillion they didn't have. And then they signed the stimulus package, which, you know, I don't know. I keep hearing different reports. Like a lot of people I know that qualified for a stimulus check didn't even get one.
Right. I still haven't got unemployment. I'm going to lose my mind here, but yeah. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
and people don't get unemployment. So, you know,
Really?
I don't know what's going on with all of that, but yeah, basically the government should look at what's going on in New Jersey, Delaware, Pennsylvania, other places that have legalized online gambling, and just realize it's a revenue source. You know,
Yeah.
I've been crossing the river. I have a cousin in New Jersey, just across the river from where I live, and all of us tested negative for, you know, the antibodies. So none of us have had, you know, the illness. So
me too.
yeah, it's awesome. So I went over to Jersey, and I've been playing mostly on weekends on WSOP.com and on New Jersey Party Poker. The games are amazing. And if you win more than $5,000, they take taxes out.
Wow.
Yeah. That's right. I forgot all about that.
So that's what legal poker
Yes,
is.
that's
This
that-
is
that-
what
that's-
you're
Yes,
saying.
sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
A fucking concept.
Yeah. And they must be making a killing because they're destroying every guarantee. Every
Wow.
guarantee is just like, you know, blown up because people are stuck at home.
Yeah.
And the games are amazing. I mean, you're seeing things on there that we haven't seen since like 2006,
Yeah.
like where people who just don't know how to play poker are attempting to play, you know,
Yes.
online poker. And it's just, wow. And for, in some cases, pretty large sums of money.
Yeah.
So it's been really great. And I just wish that it could be like this on my side of the river.
Yeah, because you
or
physically have to
everywhere.
drive over there because your IP address has got to be located in the state.
You
right?
have to be in New Jersey. Now, I know people that try to get around that with like a VPN or whatever, but the problem is if they get caught, they won't get the money.
Yeah.
So
that works every time but once.
yeah, so I would never
Yeah.
I would never try that. I'm going to go over there and do everything legally. The other day, I was in Jersey City where my cousin lives, and I'm just taking a walk, a beautiful day. I got my mask on. I'm taking a nice walk, and I'm playing online on my phone.
Nice.
And I'm like, this is great. I wish I could do this
Yeah.
closer to my house.
Yeah.
But it's just stupid. You know, you want to ask me if the government is going to wise up and realize that this has nothing to do with politics. That should just be a freedom that we all have. Like, I'm not betting on it. They can't get anything right.
Right. Of course not.
Yeah.
I was just drifting off. Let's suppose next year, this time, unemployment 25%. Just stock market collapses totally. Obviously, there'll be complete civic disorder, I'm guessing. Of the four of us, who is least likely to get killed and who's most likely to get killed in those first crisis weeks?
Brother, how high are you?
I would say very.
No, I thought it'd be an interesting discussion. It occurred to me, like Clayton.
No, I got it. I got it. By the way, I could not get high right now because I'd be thinking about these kinds of things. What? Oh yeah, you're hurt. Your back is hurting. I forgot. I would assume red wine would be the antidote right now. But, yeah, sorry. I was just imagining being like blasted and thinking about everything you just said. And I'd be like, I wouldn't get out of my chair. I wouldn't do anything.
Let me just share my thoughts. I was thinking, well, Steve's the real like outdoorsman, whatever. He can just head into the woods. You got a plane, take off.
You can say it. I'm the first to die. I can't do anything.
No, it's
outside of the
probably
computer.
no. Clayton will be out in an instant. He's got like women in Oslo who have like a bunker made for him or something. You know, he's out, and we'll never see him again. He'll stay safe. Yeah, Alex might sit in place. I would immediately just be too fearful to move, but I would cover myself with many, many blankets and hope, you know, civil order returns when I'm ready to pull out.
You're a big dude though, man. I mean, as long as you learn how to, I mean, I would essentially go get some Mike Tyson YouTube clips when he gets pissed off and just write down what he says when he gets really angry.
Right.
And I would just say that being your height, and you probably scare a lot of people away, and maybe you could whisk your family away at that point.
Okay,
logical.
okay, there we go.
Sounds logical.
Yeah.
This
Something
is
about
not gonna
eating
be,
your
this is not going to
children.
be the discussion starter I thought it was.
Right.
Yeah.
Got to throw that one in. That'll really spook him.
Yeah, that's an important one. Yeah, I remember the
I'm
time he
gonna
told.
eat his. Go ahead.
No, I just remember the time he said he was going to eat his children. Like, I'm going to kill him and I'm going to eat his children. And I was
Yes.
like, okay, yeah, that's Iron Mike, and vintage Iron Mike right there.
Yes.
Do you remember what he said after that?
No.
I'm gonna eat his children. Praise be to Allah. Which somehow makes it 10 times more terrifying because he really thinks he's throwing a prayer up, you know?
Did you see he got an offer $20 million to fight? It's pretty amazing for a 53-year-old dude. I mean,
Really?
I think he's probably in more than $20 million of debt to the IRS. Would be
oh yeah, I'm sure. But suppose it's not even a main. It was like a new bare knuckles boxing promotion.
Yeah, I'll still pay for the pay-per-view.
Yeah, I know it's gonna feel dirty, but I was gonna say, yeah,
I'd like to see it. Yeah.
They're grown men. What's his name? The Tony Ferguson fight, that was dirty. That looked dirty. If any of you saw that,
I didn't see it. Was it a good one?
Who did he lose to? I forget.
It was like I don't know how you pronounce his name. I don't watch UFC unless boxing isn't on. So
right.
Pretty.
Oh
rare.
yeah, that guy's face at the end of the fight was pretty terrifying to look
Yeah,
at.
you saw that. That was if you want to see one of the craziest stoppages ever, like just one of the creepiest stoppages ever, check out that fight. If you got ESPN Plus, it might be up streaming by now.
I know.
Clayton, I don't think we've actually spoken to you since you became the voice of TPE, or one of the voices there.
Oh yeah, I don't know.
You want to talk about that? And I mean, are you having fun with that or what?
I love it. You know, I was always a listener, huge fan of Tournament Poker Edge. I started out like in the early days of podcasting, when podcasts were first a thing. I used to listen to one called Poker Road, which was it's really funny because now he's my friend, but I didn't know the guy. Joe Stapleton, Joe Seabach, Gavin Smith, Ali Najad, a lot of the household names, Barry Greenstein.
Oh, cool.
They did like a weekly poker podcast. It was, as far as I know, the very first ever poker podcast. And 2+2 came out with one that's still around. It used to be called the Poker Cast, and now it's whatever, the same guys from 2+2. And Poker Road basically stopped after Black Friday because they lost all their sponsorships. But it was a hugely popular poker podcast. And right after that, Tournament Poker Edge started. And I discovered it and started listening. It was Mark Alioto, Derek Tenbush, you know those guys, Casey Jarzabek. And I listened every week. They would goof off, kind of like you guys do a lot. And then they would get into poker strategy, just like you guys do a lot. And I was obsessed with it. I would listen to every single episode. And I was a huge fan of the podcast. I never sent them an email. I never talked to them. I never said, hey, I love you, nothing. And then I finally met those guys at the World Series, I believe, through Carlos. All things go through Carlos.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
That is true. That is true.
Yeah. And then after I had my deep run in the 2018 main event, I actually reached out to them and I said, hey, I noticed you guys haven't put out a podcast episode in like 6 or 7 months. And I don't know why, but I want you to know there's a lot of people out here that are hungry for the content. And so maybe I will just take over as host if you'll have me. And we negotiated, terms of a contract. I told them I'd put one out for them every week, or, a certain number a year that averages to just about one every week. And it's been 1.5 years. I have the time of my life. I love doing it. I have guests. Sometimes I do it by myself, and I pretty much just have free reign. As long as I put something out, they're happy. And the fans are the best. I mean, the TPE Nation, as they call it, they're unbelievable. They just, they're hungry. They want to get better at poker. And I feel the love each and every time. So It's awesome. I know Alex, you make videos for them. Those guys are great.
Yeah. Every time you meet a TPE person out in Vegas, they're always really cool, which
They're
is
so cool.
yeah. It's definitely, it's more laid back, but they're still, I guess the word would be passionate. They're really passionate about it, right? It's like going to a soccer match with like Brazilian fans, they're just, that's them when it comes to poker, as opposed to, there's none of that elitism. There's none of that, well, I think this, therefore you have to think that as well. It's all just, let's figure this out together.
Yeah, TPE for me was really interesting because I started playing back in 2003 and then finally had my first winning year in 07. And I was a part of these training sites, and then I found Tournament Poker Edge, and now I physically went out and met them after having been a player for, I think I met up with them in 2014. So for 7 years, I'd been playing without ever really having like a group of people that I could talk hands with and learn from. And as soon as I met those guys, boom, my whole poker network and social life just exploded. It's yeah, TP is a lot of fun. I like it.
So who's been the suckiest person on one of your podcasts, Clayton?
The worst guest ever.
Try to start some controversy here.
You can say it. It was me. I'm sorry, man.
I was trying to set that up, but
I tell you, I took some of Mike's edibles before that show.
No, Alex was huge. Alex was a great guest. Alex is already like a rock star celebrity on TPE because everybody loves his videos so much.
Yeah.
So when we had him on, like, we saw a big spike in the numbers because everybody who subscribes to the podcast, obviously, they download it automatically, but all these other people that are just like, Alex fanboys, they downloaded it too. So yeah, no, Alex, it reminds me, Alex, I should get you back on soon.
Let's do it, man. I'm into it.
Yeah, it's fun. We all have no place to go, so there's no reason why we can't do something.
Yeah. Did you guys hear they're going to be doing the World Series in October?
Oh, for real? Is it a go?
That's what I can gather. Yeah.
Ooh, Vegas is beautiful in October too. It's a little more, the temperature is a little bit better, and football season if it happens.
I gotta say, I am not disappointed that I'm going to be going out to my car in that Rio parking lot, and it's going to be 350 degrees inside of it because it's all black. You can't even touch the steering wheel. I'm like, oh, that'll be kind of nice.
Yeah. No, that Vegas in summer, I just tell people you're going to be on Mars and you got to drink however much water you think you have to drink, double it.
Yes.
It's still not enough.
Oh, it's so true. It's just so hot then. So that'll be nice. That will be.
I don't know if that's official, and I had to immediately jump on WSOP.com to see if there's anything here. I don't see anything, but
oh, you didn't see
Steve's spreading rumors.
Maybe I am. Yeah, I read a little blip somewhere. Maybe it was something an alert that came up on my phone. I don't know. Maybe I blame Twitter.
What did the town crier else tell you today, Steve?
What do you hear from the village idiot, Steve? We all have to apologize to him when he ends up being right, by the way.
Yeah.
I know.
Exactly.
I mean, yeah, you would think that's that you don't think that's going to be something they're going to let go. Are you going to play, Clayton? Or
Absolutely.
Any of you guys?
I would
there.
never miss it. I will be there. I would never miss the World Series of Poker. If they said it's going as scheduled, I'd be on my flight this Friday. I had a flight booked for this Friday. I'm supposed to be heading out there to play the Big 50 or whatever it was and get my summer started. I was going to be doing a bunch of commentary this summer. And I'm probably the only guy in the whole world that doesn't mind the ridiculous heat in July in Vegas. I really don't mind it at all.
Oh yeah, you walk there from like across the strip,
yeah,
right?
You know what? When I was really fat, I didn't like the heat, but once I lost weight, I was actually digging it. I was like, okay, it's like being at the beach. All right, obviously, you can't do it for a long time, but yeah, I would walk to the apartment I was renting from the strip, and it was nice. It melted my shoes at one point, but it was a good time. Like, that's not a joke. Oh wait, no, that happened in Bullhead City. Anyway, yeah, in Bullhead City, my boat shoes melted because it was 120 degrees outside. That was different.
Slightly warm day.
Yeah, that was frying eggs.
It is a dry heat though.
Oh, right. Yeah.
I love it. I love it when people say, you know what? That does make a difference though. Cause when you're out in New York City and it's 105 with like 90% humidity, dear God, it feels a lot worse than Vegas. But yeah, the first few times I heard it's a dry heat, I was like, shut up. This feels terrible. Like, this isn't any better.
No, but like if you're in like South Carolina in the summer, I was for, carrying mail, like if it's 90 degrees out, it's so humid and you're sweating within 5 minutes.
I've been able to jump.
I've been in 110 degrees the days where I'm walking around and I'm not like, gasping for air or anything, but
I've been able to jog pretty much everywhere, regardless of the heat, with the exception of, I think it was like Florida in the summer. It was only like 95 degrees, but you're right. Like the humidity, 10 minutes in, I was like, I can't do this. Like, this is impossible. But yeah, in Vegas, if you go at night and it's that dry heat and it cools down a little bit, it's not so bad.
So how's the joke writing going, Clayton? Here, you got any COVID humor ready for when you jump back in the game here? What? Or, I was actually last time Alex was on, which not long ago, we were talking about Dave Chappelle and how much we were both awestruck by his last gig.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of wanted to ask you specifically about, like, do you set aside a time for writing, or do you got a little notebook you take shit when you think of something funny, or?
Yeah, a lot of my comedian friends, like, they have kind of a set time of day that they sit down and write. For me, just my process doesn't really work that way. I do most of my writing on stage. So I might just have kind of the germ of a joke idea, just like one little coronavirus of the joke. And then like I'll go up on stage and start talking. And then if the audience gives me any kind of positive reaction, then I'll go home and listen to the recording of the performance and start writing, kind of editing what I said and trying to make it funnier from there. So my rough draft is always in collaboration with the audience. And since audiences are so impossible to come by these days, I can't honestly say that I've been doing a lot of comedy writing. I mean, the closest I've come is whatever jokes I make on my podcast or this one or other podcasts that I've done. I've definitely joked around a lot with Stapes during that 9 hours on Cinco de Mayo, but I don't remember half the jokes because, after a certain number of tequila shots, you just don't even know what you're saying anymore. But yeah, it's pretty much, I've become a full-time poker player. I mean, I'm playing online poker pretty much almost every day. And that's really just kind of taken a front seat while my comedy career is essentially on hold. I had to cancel a whole bunch of gigs, and, it just sucks because in January, my year started off great. I was in Vegas at Brad Garrett's Comedy Club, sold out every night. I was killing it. I was like, man, I'm getting so funny. I felt like my comedy career was about to turn a corner. Just got a new manager. Like, things were looking up. Like, by the end of January, I was like, 2020 is going to be my year. And now there's no comedy and there's not even a WSOP. And, it's as soon as you start to feel any sense of optimism in this business, some part of the world is going to smack you right in the head.
How about you, Alex? You working on any new merchandise material here? Has this been fruitful for you in that respect, the extra time at home?
Not really.
No.
Wow, we're both inspiring people. Like, as far as what
I don't want positivity. I get enough of that shit with Stevie Boy here.
Yeah.
So.
No, at the beginning, every private game moved online. And that was pretty amazing at the beginning, because normally I have to haul my ass out to Jersey and play in somebody's basement if I want to play in a private game. And all of a sudden they were all online at once, right?
Yeah.
But it was, my focus hasn't been there like it used to be, because I'm still trying to run the business side of things. And normally the way I get some break from everything and kind of decompress is like to go out hiking or go to the beach or, go see comedy shows or whatever it is. Right. Like, and I just can't do that. Right. Like, there's only so much Netflix to watch, right? And I can't tell you how many times I've showed up at the computer and it's just 20 minutes later. I'm like, I don't have it. Like, it's just not there. And I'm just not going to force it. But yeah, you know, I finished, I helped a buddy of mine finish a project. So that was neat. He did something on progressive knockouts, and that was good because I couldn't really make anything for that. So that got done. And I'm scheduling content out whenever I can't play poker, whenever I can't focus. I just work on the business side of things. But yeah, honestly, it's been slower going than I'd want. There's a lot of days I wake up where I'm like, I got to get the hell out of this apartment. I can't get out of this apartment. What do I do? And I'm not being as productive as I normally would be.
What are you playing when you do play? Are you playing cash or tournaments?
I play cash.
Okay.
Yeah, like not too high. Because I don't know. I can't play like 8-10 hours anymore. Like, I just don't have the focus like I used to. I mean, sometimes at the beginning of all this, I was playing a lot of those million guarantees on like through December and January and whatever that were happening on America's Card Room. And that was a lot of fun. But, you know, it's kind of when you've published a bunch of your exploitative plays on the internet, it's kind of hard to play actually under your, assassinato, right? So like when I play on America's Card Room, it's just like, it's tough, right?
Yeah,
on
30% of the
sites,
field knows who you are and has read your material.
It's tough. And I don't know when somebody's like, their 3-bet is actually like 5-6%, or when it's actually just, hey, I know this guy opens super wide, I have to go after him. And so I obviously, I just play those tournaments because I love the thrill of playing $1 million guarantees, but it is somewhat difficult. And in the cash games, you know, a lot of those guys in private games and whatnot, like they know who I am, but they're not necessarily doing anything about it. They're recreational players, so that works a little bit better.
Okay. Yeah.
How about you, Clayton? Are you can you tell us cash? Are you playing cash? And I don't know if you want to actually tell us which site you're playing, or if it's so juicy.
No, I'm
you want to
playing.
keep that?
Yeah, no, I don't mind telling people. I play on ACR a little bit, but I kind of follow the advice that a lot of the pros give, which is don't put more money on the site than you're comfortable losing, because I just never know when. I don't have like thousands and thousands of dollars on there. I mean, as soon as I get it up past a certain comfort level, I cash out.
What are you playing? 300 cap or what? 400 cap or what?
No, I play in the tournaments. I bubbled the $1 million guarantee they had yesterday, which is always a fun experience. I'm like Alex. I like playing $1 million guarantees. But for me, the real thrill of poker is bubbling. You know, that's it's like I might win $300,000, or maybe I'll lose the whole buy-in. So
I was at one of the original, like one of the first $1 million guarantees at like the 640. I can't remember. I think this was in January. I was like top 5 in chips with like 20 people before the money, and like totally didn't cash. So I'm right there. I'm right there with you. I am into it. This guy's totally 3-bet bluffing me all in. Oh, Ari has it. You know, one of the others.
Has it. Yeah.
Oh, I guess Kings makes sense there too. Yeah.
I could have let go of my 2.5x like I tell everybody to do in my training videos, but it was really important to put that 40 plus X in there. All right, you guys have a great night.
You guys have a great night.
I think I'm officially a cash game player, Steve. That my reaction to these things, because I've bubbled one of the big ones this weekend there, and it was like somebody opens, I shove 22 big blinds with aces, and the guy like snaps me off with king jack, hit a straight or something, and I'm just like, okay, I just X'd out. Tournaments are stupid, and just played cash, and I wasn't even angry.
Yeah.
I'm like, this is just what it is.
That's the thing about cash. Like a win rate is a win rate unless you're just moving up and down in stakes all the time. But your big blind per 100 in tournaments, you know, certain big blinds are worth a lot more than others in that game. And you can find out intimately how important that is when you get deep in these tournaments and you run the equities a little closer. And if you ever play with the variance calculators, it can just it gets absurd, especially when you're doing what Clayton and I are doing, which is just playing the big field tournaments with just the best players. It's just like send the variance bomb out. Like it's going to be crazy.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, it's fun. It's fun. Mike and I have been playing in a little private room, and I've been able to bring some of the listeners in, and it's these little private games are neat. It's
Yeah, they're fun, man.
you get to know everyone. I remember in your training you said like you got to get into private games, like that's where it's at, and you're right.
Yeah, you get it now. You don't have to be the best player in the world. You just have to play really high stakes with people who have no idea what they're doing. That's the lazy ass way to do it. I like that way.
Yes.
Yeah, I've learned. I don't know if we've had a conversation about private games. You guys probably both know that. I mean, that's like a huge deal, is being able to get into the right game. I mean, that's a skill, or I don't know, a luck or whatever, but there's just watching like the games that are around here. There's a couple games that are absolute gold that, obviously they keep the pros out other than one, you know what I mean? One of those kind of deals.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you can either find something that the guy who runs the game is, you got to help him with something,
right?
Or you got to run your own game. That's what, if I'm not mistaken, that's how Chip Reese was doing so well in Vegas before he passed, is the big games were essentially run by him. He would know all the big, I guess you could crudely call them whales, but the recreational players, he knew their families, he knew the kids' birthdays, he knew everything. He helped them networking, and he brought those games together. And from what I heard when he passed, I think the game just died because a lot of poker players are not going to maintain that. They're not going to work to put together those games. And I think that's really the game behind the game that's really difficult to develop.
Yeah, there is social networking and getting yourself in spots where you can get invited to those or create them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
A lot of my friends are famous, or they're connected to people who are famous, and so a lot of times, like people in entertainment, especially comedy, they like to play poker and they really don't know how, or they don't really care to learn. And so
Exactly.
I've been in some really brilliant situations with household names who just don't care about money and don't care about strategy and just want to gamble. And yeah, that's pretty great. So I mean, being in New York is good for that. Being in LA is even better.
Yeah, I've heard LA games are crazy. And the people, like, if you think about name poker players that you don't see at big tournaments that much anymore, but they have a lot of people skills, there's usually a good reason for that. Or if they're out in LA, because you can get in some of those games. I've never been as fortunate as it sounds like Clayton has been, but yeah, you can just get people that play for fun, and you can, even if you show them some tricks and say, like, just so you know, this is my job, right? So do expect I'm going to play hard. You can pretend I'm the final boss in the game. You will beat me some days, but I'll probably do all right.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people are fine with that as long as you're upfront with them. But yeah, the real crazy games I've heard about are in LA, and those are just impossible to get to.
The game that I'm in.
Go ahead, Mike.
Sorry, Clay. Oh, I was just going to say, this isn't Stoner Talk. I think this is a good question. They do the same game at the same place every Friday. I told them eventually they're going to get held up. So many people come to the game in and out desperate, but there was the guy who's running the game probably after everyone bought in and rebought, probably had like 25K on him. And
Wow.
they don't lock the front door.
Jeez.
Wow.
Brilliant.
And so anyways, I don't know, it's just going on. I don't know if you guys have any stories about that. People who've been held up or so. I mean, I've heard a few of those because I'm like, I'm paranoid about this kind of shit. I know it sounds stupid, but
No, you should be. I was in a game where, the guys were drug dealers, and they would get really high, and they didn't know what the hand rankings were, essentially.
Wow.
But like, when it was pot and beer or whatever, like, fine, right? And then I showed up at one game, and it was not pot and liquor anymore. And I had been playing all day anyway, and I think I lost a pot, and I did my normal, like, like, screw this, I'm going home, right? Like, I'm taking my ball and going home.
Yeah.
And I just left the game. My buddy stayed in the game because he was killing the game at that time. I wasn't doing that great in it. One of the guys just decided, somebody showed up at the game who owed him some money, and he had a shotgun. He had a few things to say about it. So he was just waving the shotgun at everybody for hours, high as hell.
Wow.
And I was like, yeah, I'm never going to that game again. And that was, after that, that really got me away from private games for a while, because if you have anybody who relies on you in your family, like that kind of stuff, you know, you're making it a couple extra grand per week versus that gun going off. That's a hell of a risk. But
Right.
then you do find games like, you know, if they're all employees at Google and it's somebody's apartment and there's like a doorman or something, like, yeah, there's money in that game, but like, what are the chances something's really going to happen, right? And, you know, and you can educate them, like, that, you know, don't tell people how much money you got up here or whatever. Or even if you play a game that doesn't have a ton of money at it, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, if they've got 25,000 on them, man, like, yeah, they're probably going to get held up at some point.
No,
that would be my guess.
I don't know. I just, it's like right on the beach, really nice place. And you know what I mean? So that, I think, but still.
Sorry to interrupt, guys. You have a heart out, right, Clayton?
Yeah, I hate to go. I do want to tell a real quick story. It's hard because I don't want to say who the players are, but just imagine you're at a table with a bunch of well-known comedians, a lot of whom have had their own HBO specials or their own Netflix specials. We're not talking about, like, you know, comedians that nobody ever heard of, and they're all completely drunk or high. And
so beautiful.
Yeah, it's a wonderful situation because it's a really fun group of guys to be around, and everyone's laughing and joking. But also imagine you had recently finished in 28th place at the World Series of Poker, and they all know about it. And so every time anyone beats me out of any hand, they say, "Oh, Mr. 28th place."
Yeah, there's no way for you to win when you're the pro walking into those games. You either lose and you're never going to hear the end of it, or you win and they go, yeah, what do you expect?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, there's no way to win.
Yeah.
So they call you Mr. Ace 8. What was the one big hand you lost?
Oh, I don't remember, but yeah, it might have been Ace 8. Yeah. Yeah.
But didn't I mean, I guess that's the thing when you guys are, you know, you can see you guys play a lot of poker on YouTube or whatever. Alex, wasn't there a part of your rap battle with Thesaurus where he mentioned like some hand you played, like that was
Oh yeah.
So, I mean, you're kind of remembered for that, you know.
No, yeah, what Zwan Lu 3-bet me, and I thought, she really doesn't want me to move all in, she doesn't have it. And what I learned that actually means is she has ace queen and she's going to snap me off. She just really doesn't want me to move all in. So my stupid ass shoved king 10 all in. And she called, and the board came ace, ace, X, which of course means I'm drawing dead or whatever it was. But yeah, it comes up. That's the thing though. If you're going to play deep in tournaments, they're going to catch you losing or they're going to catch you winning. It's one of those things. You can't be in the arena without people saying something or without you losing or winning.
Well, comedy has made my skin so thick. Everybody can criticize everything I've ever done, and I'll be fine. So it's cool.
Yeah, I can't imagine.
Yeah, no, but I hate to go. I love you guys. I got to run, but thanks for having me back on the show.
Right on. Thanks for coming on, Clayton. You have a good
bro.
one.
Yeah, stay healthy, stay safe.
We'll do. I've got a be sure to check out Clayton's show on Tournament Poker Edge podcast, and a lot of fun. Just a great weekly show. I got a letter from a listener. Guys, it's a little bit of strategy. If you guys are ready.
Yes, sir.
Let's go. This is from Dylan. Dylan says, "Hi, Mr. Barton." Very official. Just found your podcast and I really enjoy it. I have a hand that I have a question about. I was playing in a cash game a few days ago, a small home game. The blinds were 25.50, so 25 cent, 50 cent. The game was winding down when we were three-handed and I was in the small blind. So hero's in the small blind with 135. The button has $20 and the big blind has 70. So button's got 20, our hero has 135, and the big blind has 70. Button limps, and hero looks down at 2 red 7s. What are you guys thinking here? We're in the small blind with 7s, a guy with $20, so there would be 40 big blinds, limps on the button.
Can you visualize the hand perfect, Mike, due to what you're on?
Come on, dudes. I'm fine. Yes.
You knew if you were going to tell us that we were going to tease you. You've actually been really lucid. I just had to tease you.
Well, no. Well, I've been off the mark, though, in conversation. No one wants to talk about what I want to talk about. So, but anyways, go ahead. I'll let you two. I will let you two pretentious assholes talk about the hand. I'll just kick back here.
Oh, come on, Mikey. We're just funning with you.
Yeah.
7, small blind, 40 bigs effective.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's about it.
What are you doing, Alex?
I mean, the main thing, the most important thing when I'm playing here, and this changes by game to game, is how can I get, there's a couple of things. How can I get the button to call me and be the only one? Because if I make it some pissant small raise, the big blind is really likely to call me. The button is really likely to call me. And I have one real option, and that's to hit the flop, because late at night, the game is breaking 3-handed. There's not a lot of bluffing I'm going to get through multi-way. If I know the button limps a lot of hands, is going to call a lot of raises and then just fold when they miss the flop, I'm really trying to set that up. So I'll even go, it was a 25-50 cent game. I'll even go to like $3.50 or $4 here just to get the button to them, because they always need to see the flop, because God forbid they would have hit the flop.
Yeah.
And then once they miss the flop, okay, at least I know I wouldn't have hit the flop. Now I can fold. Yeah. And if you just keep manufacturing that on top of each other, like just all those like 8 big blinds or whatever it is, it becomes pretty easy to establish a win rate. But what would you do, guys?
I was thinking 3-bet, probably about the same.
Limped,
like,
right?
Yeah, button limped. It's on us in
so-
the small blind. We have 135 in front of us. Big blind has $70. I'd probably make it, $4.
What kind of villain is it here, Stevie? How do you, if he 4-bets you, is it an easy fold, or what's
I think I'd just let it go if he 4-bets you. 40 big blinds with 7s.
See, if it's a private game and you know the guy's just limping and he really likely just got pissed off and shove it in, I say call, because you're most likely ahead of the range.
Yeah.
And it shows you'll gamble with him, right?
Yeah.
And people like that.
Yeah.
They like action players, right? And then if he beats you, you got to really be good to him.
Yes.
Got to be like, oh, like if they
genuinely
you,
be happy for him. Yes.
Yeah. That's the tough part. Yeah. That's the, I wasn't so good at that before.
Just strategic. Yeah, I was just strategically going to ask Alex, though, if you're going to fold to a re-raise, is that the worst option, to raise fold?
To raise fold. Well,
it's not worse than just folding, obviously, but if that you think there's a possibility there, is it better just to flat here, because it's such a good hand? You don't want to have to, you make it 350, they make it $9. It's kind of, it's too much to set mine. You know what I mean?
Right. I see your point. If are we talking about not a cold 4-bet, but a 3-bet from the big blind or from the button?
I was saying from the button. The button like clicks it back here or something,
Yeah, if the guy's super tricky, there's nothing wrong with just limping in there. And then definitely you're probably going to get paid off if you hit. I don't find many people at 25-50 cent to be that tricky to the point where they can balance their button limping range. It's usually, I want to play this pot, but I don't want to raise and get 3 bets. So
yeah, I think raising's fine. I was just curious how Steve would respond to a re-raise here was my question.
Actually, come to think of it though, if the button limps, I make it $4, big blind folds, and then button re-raises at that point, like for only 40 bigs, I think now that I'm verbalizing this, I think I would just go with the 7s, because really, what is he limping 8s there and then just shoving, or?
Well, that's the thing, which is if he raises to $9 there, that is intimately more terrifying than him just jamming.
Yeah.
Because 100,000 times we've all seen the guy limps the button, you raise, and he goes, you know what? I'm not folding my ace this time. We've all seen that, right?
Yes.
But when the guy makes the $9, that's like aces so often. It's just like, I got you here, kitty.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And you, at that point, it's so weird. I've been in this spot before where I've made it $4 or whatever it is. And then the guy hems and haws for 30 seconds and makes it $9 and you're just like, I'm out of here.
Yeah.
Like, nope. And no, right? Like maybe I'm doing something mathematically awful. I just don't care because that's aces 1000% of the time, and set over sets do happen. Like it's, but obviously if they click it back to you, you have a real issue, but a lot of times they make it like 10, 11, right? And then I think you can let it go. But when you see the screw it, I'm all in, I actually love those because it's an easy way to show the game you're going to gamble.
Right.
And you're probably ahead of the range.
Yeah. Okay.
But does against the limps, because normally, the rule is you don't really want to play hands from the small blind unless you're the aggressor, right? Does that change a little bit against the limpers, right? You can just kind of limp behind some stuff that you normally would ditch. I guess I'm asking, what is your raising range? Is sevens the bottom of it? Is it purely linear or?
Well, it depends on if there's some guys that you'll play with who limp 50% of the hands and miss the flop and just fold, in which case I might raise Jack 2 suited because the guy's just going to miss and fold. And obviously that's a very specialized player, but that does exist in home games. And then there is more commonly the guy who is 50-10 online and fold to c-bet is like 0%, in which case, by all means, just limp behind. Or if you want to build a pot in c-bet 3 streets really small, I guess you could raise, but I've never done that. But I would, in that situation, I more typically call behind. Position is only as important as the number of streets you're going to play. So if you think about it, if you shove 17 big blinds from the small blind with sevens, obviously position doesn't matter because the hand is over. If the guy can only play a flop, and the way he plays is, oh, goody, I have 2 pair, I'm raising. Oh, I have a pair, okay, I'm calling. Oh, I missed that flop, I'm folding. You're not really playing a turn and river because you know exactly what his hand is. You're effectively only playing a flop and pre-flop. So under those conditions, you can get a little bit more out of line, in my opinion.
What'd you do, Steve?
All right. Let's see. It was a small blind. I looked down to 2 red sevens. Button limps in, and hero min raises to $1.
God.
Yep.
That's called a sweetener.
Yes.
Anyway.
Pot sweetener. I min raised to $1. Usually when I raise in this game, I raised 3x to 4x, but I don't like getting froggy with sevens. All right, Dylan. Yeah, I think we kind of agree here.
I love it, Dylan.
Yeah.
I love it. I mean, okay.
This is something actually which has become quite common in tournaments, though, that min raise.
Yeah, I was just about to say it does have some advantages. If people start just folding on the flop to your like 25% pot size bet, you were not getting that if you limped in. Maybe he's got some merit, but it's not something I would explore normally. No.
Yeah, I don't think so, because we're putting in we're making the pot slightly bigger now. It's very likely that both players are going to be in, and we're in worse position for the rest of the hand. I just love how he doesn't want to get froggy. He might have got that from me. Sometimes I say that on the show.
Oh, okay. I was about to say hard to argue with that. Okay. Anyway, continue. So he makes it a buck.
Makes it a buck. Okay. The big blind raises to 250. Now this is the one with $70 in front of him. And the button shoves all in for $20. And it was a rather quick shove. I don't think the button is strong. I listened to Mr. Elwood's podcast and watched a couple of videos, and I was pondering. He was just talking to the big blind, so I was pretty sure he didn't have a monster, and he was trying to buy it. The big blind was going to call. He had a decent hand, but I didn't put him on a monster either. The first 3 hands of the game, he got big pairs, and I picked up a read. If I had to range the big blind, he had ace, queen off, ace, jack off, or small suited ace. So what... I think
the range of the button is the one we're trying to figure out more than more than the other guy, right?
You know what? Maybe
Alex?
big blind first three hands.
No, the big blind only has $7, right?
Yeah.
The big blind has 70.
Oh, 70. I thought you said 7.
Yeah, 70. Yeah.
Oh, this
70.
is an easy fold. You got, I think, I don't know.
No, typically I'd lay it down. The button has to be just on crazy, I'm done with this shoving mode. If you think that guy is super wide and the big blind has been coming after you the entire night, sometimes you can re-raise, isolate there versus the button. But generally, I guess the most important thing to ask yourself is, okay, you would start with, whenever you're making a big call, you start with, does he do this with X? And X is the best hand that you beat, which is, does he do this with sixes? Well, maybe, right?
Yeah.
Fives, maybe. But here it's kind of weird because you're not calling. You still, there's a very good chance you're going to be playing a pot with the big blind. So you really have to ask yourself, am I okay calling? You pretend both of these guys just shoved on you, and you're asking yourself, do I feel like I'm ahead? Do I think this is mostly hands that I beat, or mostly hands I have significant equity against? And it's imperfect because it's a multi-way pot, but I think it's much easier to see even a pocket eights there than pocket sixes, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Big blind could have been doing that pretty wide. I mean, both of you look pretty weak there.
Yeah.
But
true.
even saying that, and if you reshove, I think big blind is their calling range has to be jacks plus, you know what I mean? So
yeah, he might just say, I mean, in a 25-50 cent game, this is what hurts you. In like a bigger game, maybe you could just threaten him with a lot of money and get him to fold if you really think that button jam is super weak. But like in a 25-50 cent game, it's late at night. The guy wants to go home with all the money in his pocket or go home.
Right.
Yes. Yeah.
It's going to get called. Like, don't be, if he calls you a jack 10 suited there, it's your own damn fault.
Yeah.
Because you know that's what's going to happen in this game, right? So discretion is the better part of valor. I would probably just let it go here.
Yeah. Okay. I like the move of I think in the beginning though, raising bigger pre-flop, right?
Yeah, because then if you get 3-bet by the big blind, then you get jammed on. For sure, you're screwed.
Yeah. Right. You get more. You invest $4 to get that information, and then you know. Okay.
Yeah, and a lot of the time the button's just going to call you and give up or give you. Actually, I'm kind of looking at this situation. I love it when the button moves all in because 9 times out of 10, it's a little too much for me to call. Screw it, right? And that can be twos all the time. And if it can be twos, that can be twos, threes, fours, fives, sixes, ace-7 suited, ace-6 suited, ace-5 suited, etc. So yeah. It just obviously didn't go that well the way we played it.
Yeah.
Right. Well, the first question, I'm not sure, he tried to read his players or looked at his physical. Obviously, the question is, what's their range?
Yeah.
Right.
I mean,
right.
I'm not saying we know it. It's a difficult question. I'm just saying that's our answer to the question, kind of, you know what I mean?
How wide is this
I heard
guy
he
doing that?
back
Yeah.
Elwood, though, Alex. Is that something you think about, live tells a lot, or are you still just...
Oh, hell yeah. I love Zachary Elwood's books too, by the way. There's a lot of things in that have helped me a lot. I listened to one of his books, and right when I was done, I thought I got to listen to that again. There was so much there. But the way it kind of affects the range is if a guy's like chatty, a lot of times that won't be like aces or kings, because if you think about the thing I can never get out of my head is if you've ever looked at your hand before it's your turn to act, and like under the gun +2 is looking at their hand and you're on the cutoff and you look down at aces, almost nobody keeps talking at that point. Nobody continues their conversation. Nobody does anything to call attention to them. It's usually hide in the bushes and wait for something to happen. But so when you see guys like get really chatty and it's clear they're okay with their hand but not in love with it, you don't even completely remove aces or kings, but you kind of shade it down. You don't count as many combinations. But where that's really relevant is when you're 3-betting, because the worst thing that could ever happen to you in a live tournament is you 3-bet to 8x and then the guy 4-bets you.
Yeah.
And a lot of guys don't have it in them to 4-bet anything but aces or kings, especially at like low to mid stakes. Obviously, if you move up to like 3.5Ks or whatever, you're going to get people 4-bet bluffing you, right? But at a lot of like $500 tournaments or $1,000 tournaments, there's a lot of guys that just can't 4-bet bluff. And if the guy's opening and he like splashes the chips in a little bit, he's a little chatty. If you can just shade aces and kings off of his range, that can really help you.
That's
with
pretty meaningful.
Yeah, that's a big deal. But yeah, in this situation, it's like we weren't doing terrific against these ranges. And if I take out aces and kings, we're still kind of screwed because he could really not feel comfortable with nines. He could really not feel comfortable with eights. And also, this is something I've noticed at the end of the night. I'm really glad he included this detail. At the end of the night, people will get a little delirious and chatty with big hands, whereas when they first show up at the game, they might not do that. The most casual I've ever acted with aces was at a final table. It was like a 265 deep stacks in the Rio. And it was like a 16-hour tournament. So at the final table, I was able to talk and have a normal conversation with aces, which I normally don't know if I'd have the faculty to do. But when you're that punch drunk, it comes out of you a little easier.
That's the one you won, right? It was one of those Rio Daily deep stacks.
Yes, sir.
Yes,
sir. Yeah.
I've gotten 10th. That's the closest I've gotten is 10th. I've gotten
hurts.
like a 11th and a 16th, and I'm like, fuck, I just want to ship one of those things.
Maybe we could do that a whole episode, have Zach Elwood, but I feel like feel like even like mediocre players have their like reverse tells, which are very convincing these days. Do you know what I mean? Just like, people watching ESPN and all the shows, they become, they finally started learning what terms like 3-bet and position and what this stuff is. I kind of feel like the average guy who watches TV can right away see in someone, oh, that's how a weak person acts. That's how, that kind of thing. So.
Right. Well, it's almost like if somebody showed you a picture and then it was just a normal guy in his 40s and you said, hey, this guy has given like over $500,000 to charity in his life. He flies to this country, this impoverished nation every 6 months to do relief work. You'll look at him and go, yeah, I can kind of see the soft features. I can see he's probably a good guy. Whereas if you show the same photo to anyone and said, like, this guy's actually a criminal, he went to jail for 20 years for assault, you can go, oh yeah, I can kind of see it in the eyes. He's kind of it's confirmation bias. It's like, well, when you have the information, clearly you can see it, right? And I totally get what you're saying. It
seems like I've made a lot of bad decisions the last couple of years. I feel like that was the deciding factor. What do I feel from them? Where clearly they had deliberately thrown out a little piece of nugget of information, which was, fleeting.
I have done better and better at poker as the years have passed by. The more I've realized I'm not good at certain things. There's a lot of times when a guy does something and I want to go, I think that's a bluff. But I just go back to like, are you sure? Because you got to be pretty sure given this spot. Like, because when you're ranging it, it's pretty bad. It's about 18 value hands to 1 bluff, right? For a fact, the field does not bluff enough, even at high stakes. Like anybody who's ever tracked any information in poker can tell you that, right? But so when I get to that point, I go, how sure are you of this tell? The answer is always, not that sure. And then I muck and I feel like I'm terrible at poker and things go better from that point because I used to destroy myself much more. The one thing that's helped me is there are guys who are super cavalier about opening when it's like their standard 30% of the hands and just a little quieter when it's an actual hand. I've even seen that in like really big players. That's one very consistent thing I've seen. Getting people to talk in big pots is really helpful. Obviously if you're playing with good players, they're just not going to speak to you. But there's a lot of guys who cannot hold a conversation when they're bluffing, right? And if you're playing in like a super social cash game, I picked a guy off in a triple barrel bluff because a bunch of draws missed. And I just said something stupid. I couldn't think of anything. It was late at night. I was like, I think I got to call you here, buddy. You want that? And, I got a very like shaky, you got to do what you got to do. There's sometimes it's very blatant, right? But if it's not blatant, it's like, just give up. You're probably...
I will
all of
never
it.
look at anyone's pulse again. That's the one thing I know. People just don't like being stared at sometimes during big moments. They're nervous. You'll see people go fucking bonkers with their pulse when they've gone all in with kings.
No, it's my hands shake just a little bit on average. Like if you've ever done that where you put a piece of paper on your hand and hold it and see how still you can hold it. I can't actually hold it that still. Like my hands shake a little bit. And there's sometimes I'll be raising, if I leave my hand out there and it shakes just a little bit, it's so weird. I hate it when it does that because you could never tell how the guy's going to react to it. Like a total tag the entire day. If your hand shakes just a little bit, it's like, oh, it's like the pulse running, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, it does that when I'm bluffing. It does that when I have the hand. It's just, that's my hands. That's how they do it. And you'll see people go completely bonkers off of this one thing that might not even be a tell, because I've noticed there's a lot of people whose hands shake a little bit. And then there's a lot of guys who have no pulse, it seems like, in any hand, even when they're bluffing. So if you're going off of that, yeah, it's going to be really difficult to actually separate fact from fiction.
I had one where I guess I gave it off. The player, he's like a 10-25 crusher. Maybe he felt bad for me that I that he took my money, but I went 3 streets with ace. I 4-bet ace king, I think, and then just bet shoved. This is quite a bit. It was over $2,000. And on the river, he's like, "Can I get a count?" And I kind of quickly like, "Oh, sure," like being agreeable. And he had queens, and he pulled me aside afterwards. He's like, "Never do that. Just, you know what I mean? Be consistently quiet on the river." He's like, he took another minute after I did that. He's like, "I knew right away I had you, but I didn't want to embarrass you, so I took a minute before I called."
Well, I mean, but I've also seen people that's one of those things.
But
like,
that could be a reverse tell
cool
too the next time.
Yeah, I was about to say, that looks real cool when you're right. Like, I've seen people super agreeable with me, and then they just had the nuts, right? And the biggest thing, the way to get tells off of people is when you're at the table, I hope everybody's sitting down, you pay attention.
Fuck you.
When other people are playing.
That's no fun.
Yeah, no, I hate it in bigger tournaments where something I do is after every single hand, I have to write down like a note, right? And I actually, if at the end of the hand, I don't have anything really interesting to write, just seat 3 raise pre-flop, I'll let myself not write the note. But if the hand ends and I have no idea what happened, that's when it's time to really kick your ass. I was playing with a fairly big name player, and he just decided that day he was going to triple barrel bluff like everybody. And he had a thing with eye contact. His eye contact was very different when he had it versus when he didn't have it. Now, that could have been totally random. That could have been, that could be different the next time I see him, but it probably would have helped me that particular day. And if I play with him again and I see it consistent again, and then I play with him again and I see it consistent again, that is huge, right? But if you're only paying attention on the hands you yourself are playing, it's going to take a lot of time and a lot of money to collect the same information that other people are paying to provide for you for free.
Yeah.
So Steve, let's go back to Dylan's hand there.
Yeah.
Kind of got off. That was interesting. Good stuff though. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It was.
So what did he do?
Okay. He said that he makes the call. So the button shoved $20. Hero with 135 in front of him makes the call, and then the big blind also calls. So we got about 60 in the pot.
More.
Can we hold off right there?
Yeah.
Alex, is it a shove or is it a call when the big blind has $70? Is it either a shove or fold there, or would you?
Yeah, I mean, especially if you're putting him on like big cards and you think there's a really good chance he'll fold, of course, just isolate that $20 because that's probably just random. Screw this a lot of the time late at night. I would definitely just put it in. That's a really good question.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Just Stuffy Baker, the 70 that the big blind's got.
I mean, it's kind of, I always quote the Andrew Brokos calling is not a compromise. I kind of feel like that's what's happened here a little bit.
Yeah.
Right,
We're
right.
playing a big
It's
pot
too good.
out
You
of
don't want to
position.
fold, but you don't feel comfortable shoving it in because you sure as hell don't want to, give up half your money at the end of the night to some just because you run into it. So, anyways,
Yeah.
he calls and the big blind calls.
Big blind calls. Flop comes 3, 4, 7 rainbow. So we flop a top set. Pretty
That's
good
a good
flop.
situation.
Yeah, not too bad. That'll turn a frown upside down. So what? Shit. I mean, just you got probably 60 in the pot. $20. Are we just betting like 12 here, just hoping that?
I was going to say I'm checking every time.
Oh, okay.
It's really difficult. Depends. Is the guy a gunner? Is it with the information we have now? You can't answer it. There's some guys that they get really pissy when you make small bets, and if you lead like $12, you'll actually get a lot of jams because that's obviously weakness. He doesn't want to commit, right?
Yeah.
And then you'll just get the ace jack to shove into you. There's some guys that very much just wanted to see the flop, and now that they've missed, they're completely comfortable with folding. If you bet $12, that's a disaster, in which case you got to check. So a lot of this comes down to what's your read of this guy when you give him the green light. There's another thing that I've always loved to do here. Don't check right away. Take some time, because a lot of people are like, okay, I missed the board, I'll check back if he checks behind, right? But if you take some time, I've noticed a lot of people late at night get some really funny ideas if you give them some time to think, right? And it doesn't always work, but if you know the guy's the type of guy who's like, okay, if you give him a little time to think and he's a little bit more aggro, he'll kind of go for it. That's always something that's fun to play with.
Okay. Yeah. You give yourself that chance of him spazzing out when you take 4 seconds to check instead of just instantly tapping the table.
Even like 10 or 20. I've just noticed I play really fast in general often.
Yeah.
And a lot of times you do the snap check, you'll get a really guy didn't even think about it, like 1 second. A lot of people in smaller 6 games will mirror your timing. They don't realize they're doing it, but you'll see this with darts too, right? People will a guy goes up there and he just throws the darts really quick. You'll see sometimes the second guy not take his time nearly as much. Or if you play golf, if somebody plays fast, a lot of times people will mirror your speed. And in poker, a lot of times I'll play really fast because I'm more used to it than other people, and they'll make bigger mistakes if you do that. But if you play really fast and they feel like they have to play really fast, so a lot of times the easiest play to do is to check back when you missed, right? So if it's just going really fast and the guy's tired and he's not thinking, he'll just check back pretty quick. Whereas
if there was a spot where there was a lot of overpairs in his range, it'd be something different. But here, pocket nines is the biggest. If he's got all those overpairs in his range, you're always betting.
That's a good point. Yeah, this is just, he can't really have much of anything to be calling down with. So I think it's a lot of checking.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. Okay. Dylan says, flop comes 3, 4, 7 rainbow. So we got top set of sevens. I lead out for $3 in the side pot. And the big blind.
If he shoves right now, tears of joy are going to rush down my cheek.
Leads out for $3 in the side pot. The big blind called. Turn is an 8 of spades. I push all in. I was trying to make it seem like a bluff to push him off the hand. He folded. Button turns over his cards, and he has 5, 6 suited for flop the straight.
Good time. He totally does not rethink this hand if that hand is not 5, 6. By the way, exactly. a lot of guys do that, right? What did I do wrong? But by the way, the small bet, huge bet tends to be a really good hand, Dylan. There's a lot of people, it's I'm trying to suck you in. All right, you called once, let's go, baby. Right? You'll see that a lot, right? So if you are going to lead out there, you can make it a little bit bigger so the guy feels a little silly.
I do that as a bluff a lot, though, too. So if you didn't know how to use it, then
just small bet, big bet. Yeah, you can do that on coordinated boards, right? Board comes 9, 4, 6, 2 diamonds. You lead small. The guy calls you really quick. He pretty much just told you he doesn't have an overpair. He doesn't have 2 pair. He doesn't have a set. So Yeah, he's got a pair. So yeah, you could go for the 1.4x pot size bet on the turn king or whatever it is, right? But I on those like really dry boards, it's the small bet, big bet with newer players, with recreational players. I feel like I see a lot of hands when that happens, but I don't know. Maybe I could be mistaken.
I think that's a
just what I've
common
seen.
line that Andrew Brokos takes quite a bit. This is a conversation the two of you.
It's a great bluff.
Where he
Yeah.
bets, well, not just, I mean, like fairly commonly, not just in like these big equity, but he'll like c-bet 20% and then his turn bet's like 2.5 pot. You know, that small bet on the flop is making people, you can't control the size of the pot against the villain. He's letting you know, kind of thing.
Right, exactly. No, I definitely, let's say that board comes 7-4-3 and I have King Jack and I'm playing against a guy in a tournament and okay, the stacks are a little bit deeper. Sometimes I'll bet 25% pot and the guy calls really quickly. And there is a bit of you need to take a little bit of time if you flop something, because it's like, am I going to raise versus that small bet? Am I just going to call? So a lot of times when you get the quick call, you know, it's a lot of high cards and you can get a little extra money out of them because people feel silly folding high cards to that small of a bet. So on the turn, you can go for half pot, 66% pot, and it just looks ginormous now to this person's range. And then they'll fold a lot of their high cards and some of their smaller pairs. And that bet only needed to work 33% of the time, 40% of the time, and you're getting a lot more folds than that. So I definitely like that as well. The 2.5x, that's that's I don't know. I haven't done that. That'd be pretty fun to look into.
Yeah. Well, thank you for the hand, Dylan. I hope that helps.
We mostly agree the pre-flop should have been a shove. I think that's the only thing we would have really.
Yeah, raise calls what he means. Oh, I see what you're saying. Once he calls the $20, yeah. If you're gonna play a shove, sorry.
Yeah. That was the only thing that jumped out at me is kind of the bigger mistake of the hand. But yeah, you can't be too upset over that. Obviously.
Yeah.
That's what's called a cooler.
Yes.
Yeah, things happen, man. Things happen.
Yep. Shizzle happens. Right on. Well, thank you guys. This was fun. Thank you for coming on, Alex.
We didn't get any of Alex's info there. Where to hit him up for coaching? I don't think we did yet.
We got Alex on the Circle of Trust. So if
he's right there. He's right up top there. Okay,
yes,
I got you.
headsuppoker.info. Click on the COT there, and you will get Alex for coaching. Catch him up on his Twitter, and can't say enough about your products, Alex. Everything you put out, whether it's on TPE or your videos, are just gold.
I don't know if he's still here.
I'm still here.
Oh, okay.
I appreciate it. And pokerheadrush.com if you guys want to sign up for the newsletter and get daily strategic emails, such as content like this.
Yeah, definitely sign up for that. A lot of free content, and you're putting it out. Is it every day? It's at least 5 days a week, right?
It's every single day.
No shit.
Yeah, right, it's every single day for a year. It's fun. It's fun. You know, it's like, I don't know. I used to read like ESPN in the mornings, right? Like just whatever was the big article that became part of my routine. I wanted to help people have a poker routine. It's been really fun.
Nice. Good for you, man. Good for you. Keep it up. Keep up the good work. And thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me. It was a lot of fun.
Right on. And thank you for tuning in. Here is your weekly motivational speech.
So many of us, we've gone through life and life has let us down.
You can find yourself stressed out. You can find yourself depressed. Mentally fragile because of the experiences, the turbulence that you have gone through.
I know what it's like to barely hold on, to barely feel like you're breathing, and barely feel like you can come up for air.
When you're down in that hole, look up. Look up and recognize that there is a way out. There is a path for you to take. And it's not an easy path. It takes courage and it's hard. But what is the other choice? What else can we do? Let the darkness completely consume us, be overtaken by temptation and vice? No, do not accept that. You can triumph over these dark forces. You can become better. You can be better.
Growth is faster and deeper during your darkest days. Through that separation, through that unemployment, through that tragedy, through that loss.
And maybe you've been knocked down in your life and it seems like, hey, the fight is over. It is not over unless you quit.
You take those terrible events in your life and you create a new story of triumph. See, we gotta look our trauma in the face. We gotta embrace the pain and the darkness and allow it to mold us. The dark times are when we build higher, dream harder, push further, love deeper.
It's forming your future. It's pushing you forward.
When you go through a storm, it strengthens you. When you come through that kind of experience and able to reclaim your life, you come back with a certain kind of power and you'll never be the same again after that experience. There's certain things, when you go through those things and you come up out of those things, you come up a different kind of person, different spirit, different power, different energy. Don't ever say when you're going through some rough time, I'm going through a really bad, tragic time. No. See, I'm going through a character building experience.
That setback is going to become a comeback.
Go through the darkness, come out on the other side something new, and allow that person to change the world.